There's a difference between belief and faith. Faith is belief at a level that motivates to action. And so it becomes a principle of power. There is power in action, but there's great power that comes from taking action from divine guidance. Now, there's a scripture I love in our canon that says there is a law irrevocably decreed before the foundations of the world upon which all blessings are predicated. And it's by obedience to any of those that we receive those blessings. And so it's by obedience to those commandments or to that advice given by Christ. It's by proving out through action whether or not what he said is true, right? God says, prove me now herewith in Malachi, and I will not open the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing, that there will not be room enough to receive it. Talking about tithing, but it's the same thing. It says in scripture, I, the Lord, am bound when you do what I say, but when you do not what I say, you have no promise. And so it really comes through us binding the Lord by doing what he's asked us to do. I think that personal revelation is tied inextricably to obedience, which would be personal righteousness.
Mm. You talked about the fact that we can receive, this idea of the light of Christ, which is the idea that we can receive personal revelation for ourselves. You also talked about the ability to receive revelation on behalf of other people. Are men and women on earth predisposed to a certain authority to receive revelation for others? For example, a father for his child, a mother for her child. Or how do you unlock the ability or the right to be able to receive revelation for other people?
Yeah, I believe that those divine institutions like the family, there is a stewardship there, that fathers are called to be patriarchs over their families and to essentially manage that relationship jointly with their wife. So I believe that fathers and mothers are entitled to relationship for their family, for sure. I think that also God said that, we're to take care of our neighbor. And so I think that we can, if we are aware and in communication with and ask God for how we can better serve our fellow human, that God will give us that. But that again that's personal revelation for how we can impact those around us. It's not that we're to go tell somebody what they are or aren't to do. I have found that God doesn't really do that. What he does is if we ask him for his will concerning somebody, he'll tell us what our part in that is. But he's a God of agency. He's never going to tell us to go force somebody to do something.
Yeah.
I've found that if you'll ask him for his will according to you in your whatever your role is in that environment, he'll give you that information of how you're to act. He's not going to tell you to go tell other people to act a certain way.
Yeah.
That's really, I don't think that's how it functions.
Yeah.
At least not for me.
Yeah. So I think that's just a good one to, revisit, because really the catalyst by which all of these ideas were born and created was through some sort of divine revelation or inspiration. And so understanding how these, people / leaders may have received that, I think is really critical.
Well, yeah. And even for me in my personal life, I would attribute all my success in business to personal revelation, in asking God for help in how and where to manage and function my business.
Yeah.
These arguments that we're doing here, I would attribute this to personal revelation, right? I was trying to find some purpose and things that I could do outside of earning more money. And this was what came to me. And so I think there's also this power that comes from being called to do something.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson refers to it as the call to adventure. It's this voice that calls you to do something. I really believe that that's God calling to you to manifest your destiny in life. And a lot of people are scared to take the action to do those things. Me, I've always just been a doer. Too dumb to think about it. There's a lot of smart people who spend all their time getting started. And I've always just been one to just do, to just act.
Yeah.
And through that action, I have failed a lot of times, but it's also taught me a lot. And while knowing doesn't always create doing, doing always creates knowing. And so there's power in the principle of action. Faith, which is the motivating principle of action in all intelligent beings, is a principle of power. Well, why is it a principle of power? I believe it's because it's action. It's the motivating principle of action in all intelligent beings. There's a difference between belief and faith. Faith is belief at a level that motivates to action. And so it becomes a principle of power. There is power in action, but there's great power that comes from taking action from divine guidance. That's like a whole nother level. One can have faith in themselves, but to be able to have faith in a calling from God, I think adds even more power to what you're doing, because you don't doubt that when you receive that calling.
Yeah.
You know, it's a powerful way to operate, which is why I think you can see in a lot of these cultures when somebody is called to lead in that way. I mean, like all of Israel followed Moses because Moses received the call from on high and then took action around that call. And, you know, my dad always used to say to me, everybody's looking for a leader. And what do you have to do to be the leader? Decide that you want to be the leader.
Yeah.
You know, he used to tell this story of like, there's this long line, and at the front of the line, they're just handing out the perfect life. And the people in the back are like looking at the people up front in the line and like, oh gosh, these people are so lucky. They're at the front of the line and they're getting this perfect life blessing handed to them. And then they go off and they make all this money and fulfilled in their relationships and what they're doing. And he said, but you know, the truth is that you can get out of line and you can walk to the front and you can be given the ideal life ticket, but that just comes through action, deciding that that's what you want. Because what you get in life is a direct reflection of how you think. And so a lot of that can be traced back to, you know, my thought process for these arguments is that I think theism is a holistic way to think that enables one to have faith in the future and optimism for their personal life, to find meaning in the things that they're doing and motivation through the contact that you can have with the metaphysical.